What's up, you guys? This is April Walker.
And I'm Joseph Sikora, aka Tommy from Power.
We were lucky enough to work back last year doing a great photo shoot, and I found out you were from Chicago. So the first thing I want to know is, do you miss Chicago? What do you miss the most about Chicago?
I do miss Chicago. I think that any place that you're from, it really kind of lives in your heart. And that said, every time I go back to Chicago, you can never go back to a place twice. There's an old Buddhist saying that you can never get in the river again because it's not the same river and you are not the same man. So with that in mind, I go back and I just kind of celebrate all the beautiful aspects of the city that I do like. The working class, the openness of it, and the upfront attitude of it. But that said, there's no place like New York in terms of pace, in terms of progression, and also in terms of fashion.
How did you get into acting, like to get here? This is all part of that.
I started acting when I was a little kid. I asked my mother if I could be an actor, and she said, all right, honey, come back in a month and ask me again if you really want to be an actor. Next month I said, Mom, can I be an actor?
How old were you?
I was 11.
Wow.
So I did some plays as a kid. I did some commercials, one with Michael Jordan, McDonald's commercial. So my parents saved up that money and put it away for me for college. So it took me from the time I was 18 years old when I started being a professional actor until now 38. So it took me 20 years. And consistent rejection. And I'm a hard person to put in a box, I think. I think that in terms of how I look, I'm very, I look very preppy, white boy style stuff, but then there's this weird edge to me. And I think that people have a really hard time of like, what do we do? What do we do with him? Where does he fit in? And so it took me a lot of time, and a long, long time, and successes were never followed up by other successes. As hard as I tried in this business, acting, hard work doesn't necessarily pay off.
I tried to convince them that it ain't about who likes who, but about who wants to make money.
And?
Q-Dubs and his thugged out bodyguards are dead. Shot.
Don't say shot like it just happened.
Do you think that living in this generation of throwbacks, you think it holds back progression or new ideas?
You know, when I first came back, that was one of the things I made. All these great things. Well, we always think as artists what we make is great, right? So I thought, I don't want to just do everything that I did before. I want to do new stuff. And it's like painting. You want to get all of those ideas out. And everybody was asking me for 5 things. And they were all the vintage pieces. So, at first I was a little frustrated because I'm like, I have this beautiful plaid shirt. You don't see it, But they're like sending me pictures of Tupac in a hockey shirt or Biggie in the hoodie. And
almost in that exact design.
This is what they want. So after a while, if you're a good business person and you're creative, guess what? Give them what they want. You're never bigger than your audience or your fans. So
right.
I do that, and the way I still get to be creative is I do custom pieces and I do limited editions.
Urban fashion, as designer Tommy Hilfiger explains in this documentary.
The urban hip-hop look caught on with white America. Young kids were wearing the baseball hats backwards. They were wearing baggy jeans. They were listening to Snoop Dogg.
Urban is such a funny word to me because we all live in a metropolis, and urban is you, it's me, it's anybody. It just makes it a code word in fashion. Really, it becomes black, and that's the problem with it for me, because just like hip-hop has spanned the globe and it's multicultural, so is urban. So it shouldn't have ever become a bad word in fashion, but it almost did. I just think that if you make fly clothes, you make fly clothes, and that's it.
I grew up in an urban environment, and I grew up in a city, and my city loved me, and my friends of all different colors and races loved me and embraced me. There was an inclusivity in hip-hop rather than an exclusivity,
right,
which I think took over. And I think that blanketed term urban was taken along with it.
Since we're talking about what's going on within the culture, I want to know how you feel about all this, the racial murders right now.
My opinion is, if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And I think that white America in general needs to accept that. There is white privilege. There are all these things that are undeniable. And I think that once we get through the acceptance of that, then we can work on it. And I think that racial relations, we need to have a more open dialogue.
I agree.
And it needs to be white people listening to black people for sure. And it needs to be black people listening to white people and not losing their cool.
Amen.
And not saying you can't hear this, you can't say this. No, they can have this opinion.
Right.
Take a deep breath and then explain it. And if they're not hearing you, they're not listening to you, after a certain point, there's a certain point where you have to walk away and leave them in their ignorance. And I do feel this in my heart, that their universal consciousness of race relations, there's a universal consciousness that I truly believe is starting to be like, okay, all right guys, we get this, this cannot keep continuing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is starting to bleed into the consciousness of America, definitely into every race in America in terms of the youth, and I think even beyond that.